You're a wizard, Harry.
It does not do to dwell on dreams and forget to live. I can tell you how to bottle fame, brew glory, and even put a stopper in death.
It takes a great deal of bravery to stand up to your enemies, but a great deal more to stand up to your friends.
Hey everyone, welcome to Hogwarts, a podcast. Hey everyone, welcome to Hogwarts, a podcast. I'm your host, Dan, and today we actually have a new guest with us, and her name's Molly.
Hello, everyone.
So, as is tradition here when we have a new guest, what kind of made you fall in love with the Harry Potter series?
I think, like many of the other individuals that have been on this show, I grew up with Harry Potter. So, 6th grade, reading the books, similar age, plus 2, like, the older I got, just the more in depth the books got, like, super exciting.
Mm-hmm, for sure.
Yeah. Plus 2, I mean, like, there's just so much about the writing that just, like, pulls you in, and it feels homey. Like, it's gotten me through good times. It's gotten me through bad times. It's just always there.
Yeah, it's definitely a nice thing to kind of go back. It's like a little comfort, safe space in a way.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I agree. It's kind of that thing that you've grown up with, you've grown through, and you just kind of end up coming, especially like I've noticed, I go back to certain chapters at certain times. Yes. Like when I feel a certain way, I'll just cherry pick a certain chapter or a book if I wanted to. So,
right.
No, totally get it.
Yeah.
I do want to mention we're rocking some Harry Potter gear.
Heck yeah!
I got a Hogwarts house shirt with the crest on it, and Molly's rocking her Hufflepuff sweater.
Yes, and some Harry Potter socks.
So yeah, we're getting it a little all covered, but it's great. Man, Molly, you got in here for like a massive chapter.
I know. I was so excited when you asked me to do this. Like, this is such an honor. I feel like, whoop.
It's a big one. It's chapter 12, The Mirror of Erised, is what we're covering today. It's maybe one of the heavier chapters, if you really like dig into it. We've mentioned it before. It's like this is primarily geared toward younger children, young adults.
Yeah.
But there's some themes here that run real deep, and we'll get into it.
For sure.
But to start off on a lighter note, Hogwarts at Christmas is awesome.
Oh my god! Yeah, when I started reading this, like, just that Christmassy feeling, like, ooh, yeah.
It makes you want. We're doing this episode in early October.
Yeah.
But it kind of makes you kind of want that Christmas vibe a little bit.
Oh, for sure.
But I always think of, like, she does a great job of describing, which is one of her better attributes as a writer, I think. Just describing the scene and really putting you in that world.
Yeah.
But I've already talked about how, like, the Great Hall is such, it's not a pun, but it's such a magical place when you walk in there.
Yeah.
Where it's like the ceiling, and especially at Christmas time with like white and the snow falling.
Yeah.
It's such a cool vibe. Hagrid's lined. At least I envision it. I don't know if she says it specifically, but I envision like the trees lining the Great Hall, like the length of the Great Hall. And, and they decorate each one uniquely,
right?
Which we're in Chicago, and makes me think of the Museum of Science and Industry having their like Christmas tree set up.
Right.
I like how she starts out the chapter with like a couple feet of snow dumped outside.
Yes. Absolutely.
Gotta love the northern UK in the wintertime.
Ooh, yeah.
And then she like goes in later in the chapter and she describes some of like the feasts, and the feasts are one thing. The feasts at Hogwarts have always been described as being over the top. Right. Anything you could possibly imagine being part of them, but the party favors?
Oh, I know.
I don't know this answer, but is it a thing in English Christmases to have like party favors at a, like, I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, I don't know either.
It's a cool idea. Like, I think of it as like New Year's specifically.
Right.
But they mentioned it here for party favors, and if you're listening from the UK, let us know.
Yeah.
That's great. And then they end up coming out with, I think, he lets go a cracker, which is like a firecracker type thing.
Yeah.
But out of, and I had to read this, I swear, like 3 times to make sure I was reading it correctly.
Yeah.
But out of the firecracker comes, I believe, an admiral hat and something else I can't remember off the top of my head.
I know there were mice.
Maybe that was it. Yes.
Because I think Mrs. Norris was going to be eating them.
Yes,
there.
that was her own personal Christmas feast.
Yes.
And I'm like, I get that it's magic, but that is some bonkers magic.
Yes. Oh, grow your own warts kit.
Yeah, that's another one that he got from it.
Yeah.
Which, and he was so excited about that one too.
Right. Yeah.
What else did he get? You're on that page.
He got a new wizard chess set out of that.
Oh, yeah, that was another thing from this chapter is wizard chess is awesome.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
That'd be so cool. I also really like, and I forgot about this detail of it, but obviously the chess pieces are alive, and that's cool enough, right?
Right.
But the detail of them questioning your leadership
Yes.
is phenomenal.
Yes.
And, Ron's is like passed down the family, but they're at least the people who have had it have been good at chess, so therefore they follow those commands, whereas Harry is like leading them to their doom every time. And they're like, no, we shouldn't go there, we should go over here, send that guy over there, he's expendable. I'm like, whoa, that's really intense.
Really, just like push that other guy out.
Yeah, it's
spared.
Such a cool game that they come back to a couple of times in this chapter.
Yes.
Which is awesome.
Yes.
But before we leave the Christmas feast thing, I need to point out Hagrid getting drunk.
Yes.
And McGonagall gets a nice peck on the cheek.
I know.
And to Harry, and I believe everyone's surprised reading this, she blushed, and I believe the word is actually giggled.
Giggled and blushed. Her top hat lopsided.
I'm reading that. I can't envision that in my head. As much as I said, like, the Great Hall is vivid, like, I get that vivid picture in my brain. I just can't see McGonagall blushing.
Right.
Like, ever. Like, I just can't put that in my head for whatever reason. I can't reconcile that.
Right.
Blushing and giggling. I can't. Nope.
Yeah. I kind of like it, though. Like, it's a side you don't really see from McGonagall. Like, it kind of breaks her down a little bit, makes her a little bit more... And that's another thing, like, I just love about J.K.'s writing and, like, her characters. Like, they're real people, and you get to see, like, all facets of who these characters are. And I don't know, I like that. It gives a very human quality to McGonagall.
It does. It kind of brings her a little bit more down to earth, a little bit more relatable.
Right.
Instead of her usual stoic, intimidating self.
Right.
I just found that detail awesome.
It's a nice little sassy side of McGonagall.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
So.
And then, knowing I was going to do this chapter with you, I pulled this detail out because we have bonded over our mutual introvert selves.
Yes.
And the idea of staying over at Hogwarts over the Christmas break. And yes, there's a multitude of reasons for it. For example, the Weasleys going to visit Charlie in Romania, which is awesome.
Yes.
So they weren't home at the time, so all of the Weasleys stay behind. But you also have Harry, who doesn't really have a pleasant home to go back to, so he jumps at the opportunity to stay over. But the benefits are you have an empty dorm, you have a common room almost completely, if not completely, to yourself.
Yeah. And
you generally have free reign of the entire castle.
Yep. Barring
Filch and Mrs. Norris.
Right.
So that's kind of awesome.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. And I would probably explore the castle, and the dorm to yourself is great, but I think I would take most advantage of just having the common room to myself.
Oh my God, me too.
Like,
Yeah.
that would be the thing that I'd be most psyched about.
Yes.
Because I could just chill, relax, fireplace, comfy
Yeah.
chairs. I can pick the comfiest chair. I can, like,
Right by the fire.
just, yeah. And
Yeah.
especially in Gryffindor, where they have the tower, and you can just chill.
Right.
It'd be a little different, you know, I don't know if I'd be as excited being in Slytherin's common room.
Yeah. Dungeon.
Yeah, Ravenclaw's fine.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, Hufflepuff is described as a very homey type
Mm-hmm.
vibe.
Right.
So that would probably be fine.
Yeah.
Slytherin, I don't think I'd enjoy as much. But
No.
so as introverts, that just struck me
Yes.
as like
Yes.
that'd be awesome.
I would totally, like you said, grab like the comfiest couch right by the fire. I'm a knitter. Shout out to Mrs. Weasley and her sweaters.
Yes.
Yeah, and I'd knit magically. So woohoo! Yeah, it'd be awesome.
So I like how, yeah, we'll just get to some of the Harry's presents that
Yes.
he gets, because it's just like he didn't expect any to begin with.
Yeah,
Which is unfortunate.
I know.
So, like, this is the best Christmas for Harry in so many different ways.
Yeah,
Which I think at some point, one time or another in most people's lives, whether you're super popular or not, you still have that underlining feeling of, oh, maybe I'm like an outcast, or maybe I'm like not well liked, or blah 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 blah.
Mhm.
And I think Harry like really personifies that a lot. So his surprise and enjoyment of people actually, like, he does get one special present,
right.
but I mean, a sweater
Mhm.
just shows someone like put in the effort and cared.
Right.
Hagrid put in the effort and cares.
Yes.
You know, Hermione thought enough to get him chocolates.
Right.
I don't know if Harry or Ron got her anything.
My guess is no.
Probably not.
Right.
That's fine, I guess. I did have that thought. I was like, I wonder if they got her anything.
Yeah.
I would probably agree with you. Probably not.
Yeah.
And then obviously the present to top all presents, something that was owned by his father,
Yeah.
which I don't, at this point, forget the actual item. It could have been a t-shirt.
Right.
Like, if anything was given to him with the note of, hey, this belonged to your father,
Yeah.
and he wanted you to have this someday, I think would have put Harry, like, through the roof, no matter what it was. This was particularly interesting because, A, Ron reacted very excitedly about it. Like, oh my gosh, that's super cool. I can't believe you have one of those.
Yeah.
Invisibility cloak. But, oh, the Dursley gave him a present, too.
Yeah, that's right.
They actually
Sent him.
remembered enough to give him a present, which
Yeah.
is surprising.
Yeah. I think probably like Hagrid just like scared them into.
Side note,
Yeah.
how did they give him a present?
Yeah.
Did, like, Hagrid send an owl? Did Dumbledore send an owl
I don't.
to get them a present?
Yeah, because like you wouldn't think Muggle male.
Because now I'm thinking, like, literally an owl
Good
just
point.
rapping on the door constantly.
With like a note, like give Harry a
Yes,
Christmas
like-
present.
I'm not leaving until.
Right. Yeah.
But no, I just thought of that now. I was like, well,
Yeah.
how exactly did they get their
Yeah.
present to Harry?
Yeah.
And, you know, maybe they did forget, or maybe they weren't intending to send one until something happened where they're like, okay, we'll send something.
Right. Right.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
don't know. So that was just an intriguing thing. We still have some big things to talk about. But
Yeah.
before we get to the biggest thing of the chapter, not that the invisibility cloak isn't big. It's a really cool present
Yes.
that he puts to use very quickly.
Yes. I like that he goes out and uses it on his own though. Like this is from his dad. You know, this was like his dad's gift, and or not from his dad, but you know, whoever sent it to him. Like he's wearing something that his dad might have worn, you know, like, and he's like going out on his own. There's something really special about that, you know. So
No, I completely agree with you.
yeah.
He does kind of talk himself into it by the use it wisely part of the note. And he's like, well, clearly I have to use this.
Right.
So, but I agree with you. I think him using it individually the first time is important.
Right.
And he uses it to very, well, I shouldn't say responsibly, because he is breaking like several rules in this process. His intentions were great, in that he wanted to go to the library and do some extra research on trying to find who Nicholas Flamel is. And the description of the library is tens of thousands of books.
I know.
Thousands of shelves. And hundreds of narrow rows. Once again, something that I either overlooked or just looked past or just don't remember, whatever.
Right.
Put into context how big that library is.
Yeah.
That is massive.
Yeah.
That's like more than the Beauty and the Beast library.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, it's massive.
Right. Yeah.
I've always thought of it, and this isn't a spoiler because technically I'm talking about this scene in the movie.
Yeah.
But I feel like the library is just like this narrow, almost closet of a room.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or the restriction section is, or
right.
Still small.
Right.
And this is giving me the impression that it's almost Great Hall-like, in that it's that massive. It has to be almost bigger than the Great Hall.
I was just thinking that. Like, it's got to be bigger.
I mean, magic is weird.
Yeah.
True. So,
True.
and, you know,
right.
maybe they're putting a little bit on it to kind of fit all of this into maybe a normal-sized room.
Right.
And people just don't realize it.
Right.
Right. But, and maybe it's just Madame Pince. Maybe the librarian herself is just some super magical person.
Yes.
Just goes way under the radar.
Right.
But the library, that description stuck out to me. And I've said that before on a bunch of different episodes of just like 140-something staircases. Or, you know, some of her descriptions are so awesome. And I feel like they get lost in the story, which I guess is fine. Because the story is so captivating that you gloss over a couple of the details.
Right.
But some of the details are amazing.
Right.
The Mirror of Erised.
Yes.
I'm not going to try to read the quote. You can, if you have the book, hopefully you are, and hopefully you're reading along with us. You can read the inscription for yourselves.
It's page 207 if you have a hard copy.
Yes.
Yeah. All the way down at the bottom.
I will share, it's obviously one of those things where if you read it backwards, it's much more clear.
Yes.
And it's not necessarily a spoiler because Dumbledore essentially tells you this later in the chapter, but the wonderful inscription in the weird language, if you read it backwards, says, "I show not your face, but your heart's desire." It's a really neat, interesting bit of magic that Dumbledore kind of enlightens us on a little bit more, for better for worse, later. But Harry, at first, he doesn't know what he's even seeing.
Right.
And I don't just mean like people. I mean, he like really doesn't recognize the people in the mirror. Like, he has to literally piece it together by like, well, she's got really pretty hair. She has my eyes. Wait, that dude has similar hair as me. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Like,
I know.
And the way it's done, and maybe I'm just reading this and I'm putting it in my head this way, but it's almost like a deliberate like writing of him slowly coming to the realization of like, it's like a slow build almost.
Yeah.
And at least the way I read it, and
Yeah.
I'm just like, wow, it's really impactful.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, he's seeing his family for the first time.
Yeah.
And she says that, you know, and I completely agree with you. It's kind of like this like slow build up, and it's such a beautiful moment. I just can't imagine being Harry. Never have seen any of his family, his mom and dad, and all of a sudden he stumbles upon this mirror and he's like, oh, whoa. Like,
Yeah.
it's a very cool, powerful moment, for sure.
And especially with him being relatively new to the magical world,
Yeah.
like, it can suck people in.
Yeah.
But I think there's a few reasons that he has such a powerful connection to this.
Mhm.
Obviously, it's a powerful thing he's seeing,
Right.
but I don't know that he's like, is this magic? Is this like a whole other like
Mm-hmm.
realm or dimension or like
Right.
reality or like what am I actually witnessing?
Right.
It's his whole family too,
Right.
like grandparents
Yep.
and great grandparents and like
Mhm.
other things that are
Mhm.
behind going further back, which it's another detail I didn't remember.
Yeah. Yeah.
I liken it to going to your grandma's house
Mm-hmm.
and then seeing like a picture that you never knew existed
Yeah.
of like your family and
Mhm.
like they were either younger or
Mm-hmm.
kids or it's an old black and white picture that we're not used to
Right.
seeing anymore.
Yeah.
And you're just like, wow, this is cool. This is a
Right.
cool picture.
Right.
This one moves. Like
Mhm.
they can somewhat interact with you a little bit. I think Lily is crying but smiling.
Yep.
So it's almost like they're interacting with you,
Yeah.
even though they're not.
Right.
And that's hard to
Yeah.
imagine, like
Oh man.
being in Harry's shoes there.
Oh.
Ron's is a little less. He obviously goes back with Ron and tries to find this thing like immediately.
Right.
And Ron's is a little bit more, dare I say, superficial.
Yeah. I think. Yeah, I would agree with you on that.
We can get into some of this in the spoiler section. But
Yeah.
his is a little bit more superficial. So is that easier to pull away from?
I think Ron is still validated with some of his feelings, obviously, that he's seeing, but yeah, I would say it's probably a little bit easier to pull away from because I hate comparing like one person's experience to another,
Sure.
for sure, but like you have never seen your family like at all, and it's something you like ache for. And then you're like, yeah, I've never really been a big standout in my family,
Mhm.
And I'm holding the Quidditch Cup and all this, and maybe it'll happen in the future. I also think, too, Ron's personality is probably, he's a little bit more like, whatevs,
Yeah. Well, that's an interesting question that I wanted to get to, and we are
Yeah.
running way over on the first part.
Sorry, guys.
It's okay. So we should get to the spoiler section soon, but I do want to follow up on that Ron comment
Yeah.
because I think it's a really good point.
He's probably a little bit more aware than Harry is of things in the magical realm that can
Oh, for sure.
pull you in.
Yeah, I think that
So,
definitely helps.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
And Dumbledore, comes in and kind of puts a lot of it into context and has a lot of these quotes.
Yeah.
That are amazing.
Yes. Like one of his biggest quotes that like is quoted everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you're big on quotes or if you have like a quote wall at home or
Yeah.
whatever. I pulled two specifically. The first one I pulled was it basically describes the mirror. It shows us nothing more or less than the deepest, most desperate desires of our hearts.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't pull any punches with that. The words he chooses, like the deepest and most desperate desires,
Mm-hmm.
it's just a really interesting word choice that he
Yeah.
uses when he describes it. Dumbledore chooses his words wisely always, even if
Yes.
it's like oddment, blubber, and tweak from like the first couple of chapters. He chooses his words phenomenally well.
Yes.
So that's the one quote I picked.
Yeah.
Which we can get more into in the spoilers. And the other one I picked because it's meaningful to me is
Such a good quote.
yeah, it does not do to dwell on your dreams and forget to live.
Mhm.
Remember that. That's heavy. That's
Yeah.
a heavy quote
Yes.
to kind of put in here. Dreaming of the future and dreaming of like 5 years from now and 10 years from now.
Mhm.
Where am I going to be? What am I going to be doing? Who am I going to be?
Right.
And then you forget that you have a day that you have right now.
Exactly.
You have people that you need to interact with. You have jobs. You have responsibilities that you need to attend to.
Right.
And it's good to have dreams. He's not saying it's not good to have dreams.
Right.
It's just you have to remember to live them and then not just continually dream them.
Right. Plus, too, I think it's the whole fact of enjoying the journey, not wasting what you have in the moment and the good little things that are everywhere.
Yeah.
Because you're waiting on the grass to be greener on the other side. Yeah. So.
Dumbledore comes out with some great things. Just in those descriptions and his talking with Harry. Yeah. And then Harry asks him a question about what he sees in the Mirror of Erised. Mm-hmm. And Dumbledore responds, woolen socks. Yes. And I love Harry's introspective thought when he gets back to the dorm of like, I think Dumbledore just lied to me. Like, I think he just specifically lied to me. Also, I just asked him a really personal question. Mm-hmm. And we've talked before about how JK likes to just drop some bits at the end of chapters and then just goes right along her way. Yep. That's one where I'm just like, that's heavy. Yeah. Like, that's, and Harry knowing, like, oh man, I just asked him something like... Right. And that Dumbledore, to his credit, just kind of like rolled with really quick. Right. I just loved the moment where Harry's like, oh man. Right. Without thinking about it, I just asked him something super personal. Right. Well, you see that little taste of him growing up a little bit. Yeah. It's like that. It's an 11-year-old kid that came to that realization. Right. It's... Yeah. I don't know many 11-year-old kids that would come to that realization. No. They'd be like, oh, okay, cool. Woolen socks. All right, man. Yeah. It's like, okay, unique choice. I respect it. Mm-hmm. So nobody can ever have too many socks. Especially if they're Harry Potter socks. Yeah. On that note, let's pause right now, and we'll be back with the spoiler section. We'll get more into the Mirror of Erised. In the dungeon! General in the dungeon! All right, so we are back in the spoiler section of Chapter 12, the Mirror of Erised. But first I wanted to start off with one of the polls that we ran on our Twitter, which is @HogwartsAPod. And the poll was, who is your favorite teacher from book 1? And McGonagall, unsurprisingly, won with 53% of the vote. Snape came in tied for second with 20%. Flitwick is who he tied with, with 20%. So they both got 20% of the vote. Other got 7%. Who do you think was other? Ooh. The only other real options there are from book 1 that we know of is Binns, Quirrell. Yeah. We don't get a lot of Sprout, even though they have herbology. Right. So that's essentially it, really. Right. Yeah. They mention astronomy, but they don't mention the teacher's name. No. So kind of an interesting poll. McGonagall unsurprisingly won. Who would you pick? I mean, I'd have to go with McGonagall, just based off the first book. Her blushing and giggling is what really sold it for you, though. Oh, 100%. I'm like, yeah, she's a real lady. McGonagall's a very easy answer. Yeah. To be different, I'm a Flitwick dude. I really like Flitwick. You're a big Flitwick fan. Yeah. Charm's super important. Yes. Head of the Ravenclaw house. Yeah. An accomplished duelist. Mm-hmm. So that was our poll. Check out our Twitter for more polls and more fun things, and we'll drop updates on episodes coming up. So check us out. I think we wanted to talk more Ron. Yes. So you were talking about Ron's qualities that make him more willing to pull away from the mirror versus maybe Harry. Mm-hmm. And I think Harry gets a lot of the shine. Obviously, his name is literally on the book. Right. So, Harry Potter and. I think Hermione gets a lot of shine because she's the girl in the trio. Right. which is funny because this is literally the story of Ron's life.
Right.
Is he gets overshadowed by those around him constantly.
Yeah.
And you see Ron in the mirror of Erised thinking like, oh, I'm going to be house boy and I'm going to be Quidditch captain and I'm going to win the house cup and the Quidditch cup and I'm going to have all of this. Essentially, by doing all of the above, he's one-upping all of his brothers. Yeah. Because Charlie was one, Bill was one, Percy's one. Right. They haven't had the combo of all of the above. Bill wasn't a Quidditch captain. So it's just an interesting kind of desire that he has. His ability to just be like, whatevs, as you put it. Right. And be like, oh, that's cool and everything. Right. And either it's him recognizing like, hey, this is really cool, but either he self-doubts himself and thinks, that's cool and everything, I don't know that that's possible. Right. Like, I don't know that that's actually really attainable for me. Right. Or I think he has the thought of like, well, maybe this is the future. This is like a look into what my future might be. Right. But it's just interesting that he's very quick to just turn away from it and be like, no, I don't need to go back to that. Right. Right. Well, I think he tends to be a little bit more cautionary of magical items. I think him growing up in a wizarding family where his dad, who is, he works for the ministry, he does the muggle artifacts and the bewitching of everything. I think he's a little bit more cautionary of magical objects. So he sees all these great things that are happening and he's like, I don't know about that. Like, there's something that feels off about this mirror. I think part of Ron's quality is, Hermione's the book smart, super intelligent, has her head on straight kind of person. Harry is more street smart, practical. Right. But also rushes headlong into things, doesn't really think things through a whole lot. Very reactionary. Can get himself into some trouble doing that. Whereas Ron is like, he's practical, street smart, but without that rash quality of Harry's. Of like, well, I don't know that this is that great. Let's back up just a second. Right. And let's think this one through because this doesn't feel right. Right. And I think it's a quality of Ron that kind of gets undervalued. And maybe that's because people are looking at the other two in the trio more. Yeah. But I think it's a testament to Ron. And it's a testament to him in this chapter that I think a lot of people gloss over. Oh, for sure. Plus, too, like, all right, I'm with some of the other guests you've had. The movies sometimes kind of just... do not do Ron any favors. No, like they really... he seems like a scaredy cat for a lot of it. And yes, there are some of those qualities for sure, but like Ron's actually pretty chill. Like, like I think having like brothers like Fred and George, you're gonna like things are gonna roll off you a little bit easier too. So for sure, yeah. Ron gets a lot of great moments in this book, and we haven't gotten to some of his best moments yet. Yeah. We get glimpses of, we get a teaser of it here. Speaking of Weasley being kind of in the middle of things in this chapter, the Weasley twins start off the chapter by bouncing snowballs off the back of Quirrell's turban. Yes. At this point... Boldy. Yeah, right? Like, that's a thing, right? So you're literally throwing snowballs in Voldemort's face. Right? Like... I love it. And I'm sure he's back there like, kill him. Right. Kill him now. Yeah, it's... It's just one of those moments that sticks out. It's like, wait a minute. Hold
on. By the way, just side note here. I would totally love to spend a Christmas hanging out with like the Weasley twins and like being in the mix of all that. Like that had to be really fun for Harry, you know? Like
oh yeah.
like what a blast.
And this is a nice moment with even Percy too.
Yes.
Because the twins force him to kind of be part of their group and hang out and chill and
Right.
And relax a little bit and have a little bit of fun, which Percy just from here on just doesn't.
No.
He does it less and less.
Yeah.
And it's an interesting look at the family dynamic that they have.
Yeah.
And how they very quickly accept Harry as I think that no, the twins say it. It's Christmas is a time you're not going to the prefect's lounge.
Yeah.
Christmas is a time for family.
Mm-hmm.
Harry's standing right there.
Right.
And I think they just, without much thought, just kind of include him in that.
Yeah.
Which to them seems like, oh, yeah,
right.
You're good. You're part of us.
Right.
And to Harry, or to someone in Harry's position, that's a big thing.
Oh, yeah.
It's a meaningful thing. It's like, wow, I just saw, or I'm about to see his true family in one form, his biological family.
Right.
But he has a new family.
Right.
And you kind of get that dynamic switch in this chapter, which is kind of cool.
Right. So awesome. Like you get like this like adopted type of family happening, and then he also sees his real family, like that parallel of like, you know, his true family, they're gone and past, but then he also has this warmth of a new family as well that's there to take care of him and be like, no, you know, like that's, I don't know, it's amazing stuff. I love the Weasleys. They're great.
The Weasleys are awesome.
Great.
I love the sweaters that you mentioned earlier.
Oh, yes.
The thing about the sweaters, though, I told you that I am totally overthinking this 100%, and then you came at me with a very practical, real-world thing that makes all of the sense in the world, but I am still going to conspiracy theory the heck out of this.
Do it.
So... but reading the chapter, Mrs. Weasley gives Harry the Weasley tradition of the sweater, world green part of it. I was like, ooh, is this hinting towards like his dual nature of like Gryffindor, but also Slytherin?
Yeah.
The reason is, if she just said green, I'm like, cool.
Yeah.
But emerald green, like a vivid green, I'm like, maybe.
Yeah.
And then your very real world, practical, honestly, the actual probable reason.
My logical side coming out.
Yeah. What was that?
Well, Harry's eyes are green, so maybe she was just matching his eyes.
And that's fine. That's fine. But Molly, that's a very boring answer.
I know.
It's the correct one, clearly.
Right? It's fun to go down a fan rabbit hole and then start a whole YouTube conspiracy theory on it, for sure.
That's what I read so many of on Veritaserum back in the day.
Yeah, right?
No, I'm still sticking with my conspiracy theory. I don't care that Molly's 100% right. It's fine. But anyway, so the Mirror of Erised.
Yes. So many layers.
And I have questions. I have questions about a lot of things, actually, in this chapter. Dumbledore has this in just a random classroom, in a random empty classroom. So, obviously, at the end of the book, Harry, Hermione, and Ron have to go through these chambers with different obstacles that some of the teachers have set up. The mirror is obviously Dumbledore's last resort obstacle or trick or whatever you want to call it.
Right.
It's insanely genius.
A genius, man. Like, Dumbledore in general,
It's
man.
foolproof. Like, every one of the other obstacles is, honestly, if someone really want to get there, fairly easy to get through. This one, however, you literally have to be a very specific kind of person. And it's such an almost unbeatable thing to put at the end of it.
Yeah.
Which is why he gets stumped by it.
Right.
But so I guess my questions begin. He just has this magical artifact at his disposal.
Right.
He clearly knows it extremely well.
Mm-hmm.
I'm assuming he spent a good long time staring at it himself.
Right.
And I think in one of the movies, I want to say it's Crimes of Grindelwald,
Yes.
we see him staring into it.
Yeah.
And we see what he sees.
Right.
Which, thankfully, this is the spoiler section.
Yes.
He sees Grindelwald
Right.
in it. Big lie he told Harry there.
Yes, absolutely. But man, it would have been great if Dumbledore, out of all of the things he wants most in life, woolen socks.
I'm sure someone has photoshopped that scene of that movie of him just holding
Yes.
Yeah. I'm sure that meme is out there somewhere.
Yes.
Or Grindelwald holding woolen socks.
Ooh, I like that.
Oh, God.
Welcome to our rabbit holes.
But yeah, no, it's just, it's an interesting kind of thing with Dumbledore that he knows the dangers of this. So, and I get that he's a history buff and he's been there and done that and he's done his research on the mirror, I'm sure. And he knows the accounts of people wasting away in front of it. And I think he knows enough to obviously pull himself away or realize like, hey, this isn't real or this isn't happening or whatever the case may be in his particular relationship with Grindelwald, which is the epitome of Facebook status. It's complicated.
Right.
So
yes, very.
The gravity that he has and the respect that he has for the mirror and its magical power to ensnare people so completely. It's a temptation, though, to bring it into the school. Like, even for him. Like, it's you're running a little bit of a risk.
Oh, for sure. I do find it interesting, though. Like, I will say this until I'm blue in the face. Dumbledore is such an interesting man. Like, I want to know so much more about him. Because, like, there's just so many things that happen.
Aren't you glad we're getting the secrets of Dumbledore coming out?
Yes, actually. I just hope it doesn't end up like the Crimes of Grindelwald. But anywho's, like, when Harry first, like, stumbles upon this mirror, it's just all too, like, perfect sometimes, you know? Like, a door stood ajar to his left. It was his only hope, right? Like, was Dumbledore somewhat at play with Harry kind of discovering this stuff?
I'm so glad you asked this question. Because this was also a question I had. Yeah. It's like, okay, so what's Dumbledore's endgame here with this scenario? Right. It's the easiest answer is he already knows Quirrell is going to break in. Right. And he's going to get here. So he's banking on that. He's also banking on Harry also being there. Right. Getting through all the challenges, which admittedly is difficult for a first year. Right. Even though you said it's easy. It should be easy for Quirrell. It should be easy for Snape. It should be easy. For a first year, not necessarily as easy. No. You're banking on that. Then you're literally telling him, you're giving him instructions on how to work the mirror and what the trick is behind the mirror and like what it does. Right. And how, like, what magic it possesses. You're literally instructing him to then get the stone. Right. For potentially Voldy. Right. How does he know? What's your end game there, though? Right. Like, this could go horribly wrong. Right. Why? You're Dumbledore. Right. You could stop this at any given point in time. Right. But you're banking on a first year. Right. Yeah. And like, also too, like, the whole, I don't need a cloak to become invisible. Like, Dumbledore, what is your spell? Like, what it's a little weird, isn't it? It's a little weird of a statement. Right. So, he was clearly there, invisible, listening to Ron and Harry argue about this. Right. weird, right?
Yes.
So either he's tempted by the mirror,
Mm-hmm.
and he's in there contemplating the mirror
Right.
on his own,
Right.
and they just happened to be in there at the same time.
Right.
And he did like a quick, I think it's like a disillusionment spell or something like that, where it's like the best wizards can get pretty darn close to an invisibility cloak. Not that good, but pretty darn close.
Right.
And others are like a little shaky, a little wobbly with it, and whatever. That's fine. Or he's there watching their reactions and at least learning like what theirs is first, truly.
Right.
Is this him testing Harry a little bit and being like,
Ooh.
what do you see in that mirror? Because that tells me a lot about who you are.
Right. Ooh,
Like
good point, Dan.
I think he knows, because that's why he sent him to the Dursleys, is for a more down to earth, growing up.
Right.
So, but I think this is like a big Dumbledore. Like, who are you really?
Right.
Like, let me see who you are.
Right.
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting reason as to why Dumbledore is really kind of checking in on them during this period. Was it innocently, not innocently, but like him attracted to the mirror and that's why he was in the room, or was it more nefarious in like trying to actually scout Harry?
Yeah. I think Dumbledore in general is just an inquisitive person. So I'm sure too, it's just he's wondering in general how Harry is shaped as a person, and
Is Dumbledore afraid of Quirrell? And let me qualify that, because everybody listening right now is probably like, what are you talking about? It's Dumbledore, why would he be afraid of Quirrell? Not so much Quirrell, but Voldy. Like, he knows that bond might be there, somehow, some way.
Yeah.
And he knows that whatever magic he has can't beat that necessarily. Hence, Harry needs to be the one because of that contact thing. And you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, the ultimate reason that Quirrell's defeated at the end of this is because of Harry's inherent magic.
Right.
So does Dumbledore need Harry for that? And that's why, like, his answer to Buck Quirrell is Harry. And he can't do it himself?
Right.
Does he know that? Is that a thing here? Because it's questionable to send an 11-year-old on this particular quest.
Right.
It's just an interesting question of, like, and maybe that's it?
Yeah. I don't know if maybe fear is what's behind it. I think it's more, yes, he knows the prophecy. Like, he knows that Harry has to be the one to beat him. So he's probably seeing maybe where Harry's skills lie. Like, scouting.
Yeah, so you're in the camp of Dumbledore has already started his training.
Yes.
Like when I think he sends a letter in the 6th book about like, I'm going to be doing some of your lessons this year.
Yeah.
And Harry gets like all of this imagination gone wild of like, he's going to be teaching me this advanced defense against the dark arts or whatever.
Right.
So you would say that maybe his lessons from Dumbledore in a back-ended way start now.
Yeah.
With the Mirror of Erised.
Absolutely.
Interesting.
Yeah.
It's an interesting take.
Yeah.
I didn't honestly mean to go this direction with this conversation, but it's interesting.
It's definitely thought-provoking for sure.
And this chapter and this Mirror of Erised is so intriguing to me.
It's heavy.
It is.
Yeah.
And like, I don't even know what I would see if I were to actually like look into the mirror.
Yeah.
Because I know what I think I would see.
Right.
But then it's your true,
Mm-hmm.
deepest desires or whatever.
Right.
So, I like to think what my desires are in this world, but it would show you what they really are.
Right. Exactly.
So it's like, I don't know.
Yeah. I know I have no idea what I would see. I mean, I'd like to think it would be similar to like Harry's, like family and that like happy future type thing, you know.
You're sure yours is not like knitting outdoors?
Oh.
Like
knitting in the Gryffindor common room or the Hufflepuff common room next to a fire, being left alone.
knitting some socks for Dobby.
Yeah.
Because we're in the the spoiler section.
Socks for Dumbledore.
There you go. That would be you.
Full circle.
If you were Harry in this, you'd be like, woolen socks? I got you. Like,
no worries, bro.
I can definitely imagine you doing that.
Yes. And I can't believe I just called Dumbledore bro.
I can believe it. No, I don't know. If it was me, I would think I'd see myself like traveling, like different locations or whatever, and that I don't know how a mirror would like show me that, but I would like to think that that's what it would be. But it's also an interesting thing of like you think something, but it's going to show you whatever it really is, whether you subconsciously think it or you're thinking of it constantly.
Right.
We've talked a lot about the Mirror of Erised.
We have.
Because that's a chapter title.
Right.
But the invisibility cloak is dropped in this chapter.
Oh my gosh! Like boom.
It's it's not that important. It's just a Deathly Hallow that's passed down through Harry's family.
Right.
It's
not
like
that big of a deal.
whatever, it's no big deal.
Right.
We don't learn who wrote the letter and pass this down in this book or in this chapter. But it's Dumbledore.
Yes.
So, at this point in time, then, he had 2 of the 3 Hallows. There's 3 Hallows.
Yes.
The stone, the wand, and the cloak.
Right.
He has 2 of those 3. He has the wand and then the cloak in his possession.
Right.
The wand itself, by definition, makes you the most powerful, quote-unquote, being out there. And the cloak, based on the story, kind of makes you the master of death.
Right.
Because it hides you from death.
Right.
So he's like invincible right now?
Pretty much.
Like he was straight up invincible.
Yeah.
At the beginning of this book.
Yeah. 2, 3 for sure. Yeah.
Not to mention his own skills, talents, and knowledge, which are considerable.
Right. I mean, if you think about it too, like those are probably out of the 3. Like the 2, if you were trying to be super powerful, you'd want to have.
It's the perfect combo of offense and defense.
Right.
But again, and Dumbledore mentioned it, and you called him out for it, like, he probably doesn't value the cloak as much because, well, I could become pretty darn close myself because of my own talents and because of the wand.
Right.
So he probably doesn't value the cloak as much.
Right.
And he likes the wand, obviously, because he can do a whole bunch with it, and how he got the wand is meaningful to him.
Right.
For a couple of different reasons. So, but then the third one is the stone, which he also possesses at one point, although he doesn't have it yet at this point.
No.
Because he wasn't hunting Horcruxes until later.
Right.
So he would have to be the closest person to having all 3 at one time.
Yeah.
Ever, right? I'm pretty clear he'd have to be.
Yeah.
Other than the brothers themselves.
Yeah. Right. But even still, like they were
spread out.
Yeah. And the one automatically lost the wand. So how long did he have that for?
Right.
So
no, the wand changed his hands the most.
Yes.
And obviously the cloak probably switched hands the least if it stayed in the same family line.
Right. Yeah.
So, and then the ring didn't change hands a whole lot.
No.
Because it was with the Gaunt family for a long time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Even though they had no idea what it actually was.
No.
I think I would always go with, I would want the cloak. And it's more than what the books tell you. The books literally tell you, this is the answer, this is the one.
Right.
You should choose this.
The cloak, right.
If you're a good person, blah, 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 you choose the cloak.
Right.
That's the answer to that riddle, or whatever. And I get that. But, there's reasons people choose the other 2.
Oh, absolutely.
And conversely, the books tell you that the stone is the worst.
Yeah.
Or at least it paints the stone as the worst because it's not favorably looked on in the story.
Right.
It's very depressing.
It's super depressing, but the promise of what it gives, I think, is extremely intriguing. I mean, I always, it's funny because for a long time I was like, oh, for sure, the cloak. Like, it would be so cool to be a fly on the wall and, just observe.
Go full introvert.
Right. Go full
No one
introvert.
can see me or talk to me right now.
Right. And don't get me wrong, still would love to have a cloak, but the stone is...
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
I've had some recent things happen to me in the past couple months, and my father passed away, and it's super, super... what's the word I'm looking for?
Hard.
Yeah, I mean...
it's just hard.
It's hard,
Yeah.
So, the idea of having someone... or having something that, you can have one more... you would be able to have one more conversation with that person. It's tempting. I could see where that tempt comes from.
So, but you make an interesting point, though.
Yeah.
Is that if you had the stone,
right,
you would use it more similarly to how Harry used it in 7.
Yes.
A fleeting, quick, I need this just right now.
Right.
I don't need to see you for the next 15 years.
No.
I just need you right now because I'm feeling down, or I'm feeling scared, or I'm feeling like I can't do this.
Right.
And I'm not saying I can't make a sandwich because I broke my hand.
No.
It's like a big moment in your life.
Right, exactly.
Where it's this is my life.
Right.
I don't know where to go.
Right.
And you need that boost of someone that not just but someone who knows you so well.
Yeah.
It's an interesting clarification. I think, and I credit JK with this, because after she tells that story, you're like, why?
Right.
Would you ever choose the stone?
Right.
It will literally lead to the most depressed version of both of those individuals.
Right.
And it leads to a tailspin and not a very happy ending.
Right.
Why would you do that? And then she comes back around and is like, here's why you might opt for it.
Right.
And I think that's a credit to her to be like, okay, here's both sides of that equation. Here's how you don't use it, and here's how you do use it.
Right.
The wand is self-explanatory.
Right.
And the cloak is fairly easily explained. So the stone is a big gray area.
It is. It really is. Because, when you think about, the story she tells first, it's, not really that person. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And, it's when you lose someone, it's you want that full person with you still.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be really hard.
Similarly to the Mirror of Erised.
Yeah.
If you have that stone, though,
yeah,
that is a temptation.
That is.
I mean, that's a real temptation to have them there more than maybe we just talked about.
Right. It is. It is really tempting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you'd have to just pull back and just know, this isn't right.
Right.
It's by definition, it's unnatural. It's
exactly.
So it's
yeah.
And it's not like a ghost, like Nearly Headless Nick or the Bloody Baron.
Right.
It's a shadow of a ghost. It's
right.
Yeah, it's
JK just gut punching you with that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I get where you're coming from with that switch. If you use it how I guess, I shouldn't say intended, because Death made it to intend.
Right.
To come back to him.
Right.
It's just the cloak was the one that outsmarted him.
Right.
So do not use it how it was intended to be used.
Don't. Use it carefully.
Yes. Sparingly, rarely.
Right.
In the most dire circumstances. But no, it's interesting. That's an interesting take.
Yeah.
Yeah, so chapter 12 was a lot.
Yeah.
In the best way possible.
Oh, for sure.
And it's an important chapter.
Oh, yeah.
Which I've said a lot during these podcasts.
Yeah.
Harry Potter, man, it's phenomenal. That's why we do this. It's so much fun.
Yes.
We're running long. Apologies. So hopefully you enjoyed the conversation. We'll end it here. Spoiler alert, Molly's going to be back for Chapter 13.
Yeah.
So join us for that. Thank you for listening. You could follow us on Twitter at HogwartsApod. And then my personal Twitter account is at Daniel_Allen44. And for Molly, I'm Dan. Thanks for listening. And thank you for listening to Hogwarts, a podcast. If you like what you've heard, please click the subscribe button on your preferred podcasting app and follow us on Twitter and Instagram at HogwartsApod.